Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Proudly South African Unlocking the Pharmaceutical Opportunities for Local Business webinar. We are very happy to have all of you here. My name is Anile Ndlovu, and I will be the facilitator for this webinar, which I'm very interested in. So whenever I think pharmaceuticals, and I think a lot of people will think that, we think painkillers, we think ARVs, but I'm sure there is plenty more to the industry than what a lot of us know. We've got an incredible panel of speakers today that I am very interested to hear from and to learn more about the pharmaceutical industry, especially pertaining to our local industry. The key talking points for today, I'll just like to go through them so that as we engage with our speakers, we are aware of what they'll be talking about and we can jot our questions down. There's going to be an extended time for a Q&A and to share whatever comments or views that we have pertaining to this industry. So the key talking points today are going to be on the value chain elements of the South African pharmaceutical industry. You know, who are the key players? What is required to ensure the efficiency and efficacy of the pharmaceutical industry in our country? And then what are the policy and regulatory frameworks? We have guests who are already in the industry who'll be able to share those with us. Should someone maybe not understand what the frameworks are, they're thinking of getting into the industry, they'll be able to share what processes and policies and frameworks that govern the industry. And then an important part is collaboration. So what challenges and opportunities are there in terms of collaboration between private sector, public sector, so that we have a well-running pharmaceutical industry in the country? And as I've said, we've got people who are already in the industry, so they'll be able to share what their journeys have been from the start and how their businesses have been going, and what is it that those who are looking to join the industry can look forward to. But before we get to that, I'd like to ask Janine van Straten, who is from Proudly South African, she's one of the executives, to just give us a bit of a background of who Proudly South African is for those who may not know, and what are the benefits of being a Proudly South African member, how we can join, and how we can support Proudly South African initiatives. Janine, over to you.
Thank you so much. I'm just going to switch on my presentation. Good morning, everybody. I was telling the team a little bit earlier that it's a Blue Tuesday with our background today, the start of a new week. And thank you so much for joining us. Let me double check. The team will give me a shout if my presentation isn't showing, but I think it is successful. The chair, double check. There we go. Brilliant. Nila, thank you so much for setting the tone for today's webinar. My role at Proudly SA is really to drive localization strategies for the organization, working with the public sector as well as the private sector, which most of them are, of course, our membership base. And also just to give you some insight into our intervention throughout the years in this industry, and also auxiliary industries, all to do with manufacturing. So looking forward to sharing the insights that we've been exposed to, and how we shape the work that we do for this industry. So just in case anybody is joining us online is not sure about where we come from and why it is that we exist, it really is we do address the triple challenge that the country continues to face to this day. It's been a big concern for a number of years, and you're looking at inequality, poverty, unemployment, and Proudly SA's mandate is structured around that to really, as best as we can, alleviate unemployment, because inevitably it assists with inequality and poverty. Our tagline is "Be Proudly South African, buy local to create jobs." We often refer back to the furniture industry, just to give you a sense of what we think is a big cause of industry suffering, and why it is that we've been importing or why it is that the local industry is really on a back foot, so to speak. If you look at the number of plants in the furniture side, in 1999, there were 3,500. It's a third of what it used to be. It's 1,100 plants as of 2020. And you're also looking at the direct jobs for this industry has really halved from 50,000 to 25,000. And for us, the big reasoning behind that is due to imports. If you're looking at the furniture value chain, you're looking at synthetic fibers, you're looking at metal parts, various elements pertaining to textiles. So the moment one factory shuts down, the whole value chain is disrupted. And that's also why you're finding people, closing their factories and then just paying an imported duty, or we've got those middlemen who do import for the retailers, etc. So it's a big reality that we're facing. So that's why we do our best. I'm going to use it quite loosely, do our best to protect industry as much as possible, because once you close a factory, it's very, very difficult to revive that factory to its former glory. So it's very important that we protect as much as possible. Proudly SA is not, we are not the only country that's got a buy local campaign. I'm sure if you've had the privilege of traveling overseas, you might have seen other examples such as those from Australia, which is Australian made, the UK, Philippines, various countries have their own buy local campaigns. And also then you're looking at the US, which has got quite a significant strategy, the Buy American Act that has been strengthened throughout the various administrations there in the US. So it shows you that, they fight, as you very well know, with the trade wars currently happening. It's quite scary to think what could happen. So that is something that we're very much aware of. But if you're looking at the previous administration, they had the Buy American Act, which was strengthened the moment that the administration came into play. Of course, the interventions now are quite significant and are well documented in the media. So if you think about where Proudly SA sits in the value chain, so you've got various organizations that do amazing work when it comes to promoting local in as much as supporting what the work that we do. But I mean, looking at those that look at productivity, sustainability. I know it's not on the slide, but support, compliance, funding, and then where we come in, we are all about promoting local through our various access to market opportunities. So when you think Proudly SA, we'd like you to think access to markets. That's really what we stand for. And I'm going to be sharing with you our various endeavors throughout the years to make that happen. So even though we are promoting accessibility of locally made products and services, we also educate the buyers, the public, private sector about the importance of localization. The list is here. I'm not going to spend too much time explaining each one, but looking at inevitably it's retaining and creating jobs. If you localize, you're also contributing to skills development, economic development, empowerment, improving living standards of people in employment and those who are supported by them, infrastructure development, and increase in the GDP. And then also we did a study with Dr. Abidian a few years ago, just to showcase, because there are a lot of naysayers out there that's saying that localization won't be worth it. So we thought to do an independent study to see if it will be worth it. And the results were phenomenal. If there is a 10% investment, so that could be maybe building a new factory, increasing your product line. It could also be import replacement exercises that you as a buyer for your organization has in place. So 10% investment can increase the GDP contribution of this country. The fiscal revenue will be increased by 9%. But for us, very important, an estimated 75,300 jobs will be created in manufacturing, which then stems from various other subsectors that we have investigated, which includes agriculture, includes furniture, it includes mining, etc. So where manufacturing is prevalent in this country, the study covers that. And I'd really like to encourage you to view the study. It is available on our website for you to download. It's quite a lengthy one. This is just the highlight slide. So our mandate, I gave you some insight, is about lobbying. And then lobbying the public sector, the private sector, as well as the everyday consumer to source local when they make their procurement decision. So it's all good and well, as we always say, to say, hey, SA, buy local. But if you don't know where to source local, it makes it very much more difficult. Time is of the essence. So we do make it easier for procuring entities to choose local. Um, so what we do is we promote our membership base. So if you have a company, you're very welcome to consider joining our organization as a member company. We vet in accordance with 4 key criteria. So we look at local content, we look at quality, environmental standards, and fair labor practices. If you're not a member and you joined our membership team is very efficient. What they require is for you to complete a membership application form. We vet local content by asking you where do you source your raw material, your components from. If you have to bring them in from abroad, does the conversion or assembling take place here locally? So are you doing what you can to promote and employ more, promote local, but employ more people? We also look at quality. So that logo of ours, as you can see on the screens, that big green tick stands for quality. So it really is determined on what the regulator requires quality to be. That's how we test for quality. So if you are, if you have a factory, we look at your waste management policy, your ISO certificate. If you're a smaller business and you might not have an ISO certificate, have you been vetted in accordance with the industry standards? So we're looking at that. So NRCS, SABS, SAPRA, etc., all our partners in this space. So it's important that adherence is made to those requirements for the individual products that will come on place come in. Yeah, that will join us, so to speak. We have a database of locally made products and services, and when you come on board as a member company, we then enlist all of those products and services then on our database, because we do have quite a number of organizations contacting us asking if we have members making a specific product. So that's why that's quite important. Then environmental standards, we vet for that, as well as fair labor practices. We ask for your HR policy or a contract of employment just to check that you are adhering to fair labor practices. And then once you come on board, you then eligible to use the logo and then also partake in all the access to market opportunities that we have on offer for our member companies. So looking at the private sector procurement interventions, in 2018, we did our first set of localization commitments at the second Jobs, the presidential summit that was held in 2018, and we actually have now grown this initiative. But we're asking, very importantly, will you commit to job creation? So we're asking companies to do what they can to buy more local, award more contracts to local manufacturers if they can do an import replacement exercise, or create a new factory, or expand on the line of products that they make, so that we can really grow the markets. And we've had interventions in banks, hospitals, schools, autos, retailers, and manufacturers, where we had solid commitments from companies. I'm quite thrilled to say that in 2023, we did get a commitment from the National Hospital Network. So that is the body representing the independents and the smaller clinics, etc. And they have a 3 to 4 billion rand spend each year, which they have now gotten permission from the Competition Commission, as well as the DTIC assisted them to participate in a centralized procurement for their membership base. So that is a big spend, and the commitment was to award as much of that 3 to 4 billion rand to local manufacturers, local products. So we were working with the National Hospital Network and then presenting our membership base to them. And the work continues then across other industries, etc. We're very excited. We have the market access platform. This makes it easy for the private sector, to source local. So we have a database where our members are listed. And the big job we have now is to go to each and every procurement entity to enlist on as a buyer so that they can access our membership base. So it really is almost a tender for the private sector, or if you're in the public sector, it is the central supply database, but for the private sector, not for government. So that is really the thought behind the market access platform, or MAP. So we are looking forward to making it quite popular and getting all the buyers enlisted on the site. It also allows you, if you've got your individual preferential procurement targets within your organization, to then know you can source from a specific footprint, so specific municipality or province. You can also then highlight if you want to buy from women-owned businesses, Black-owned businesses, youth-owned businesses. You can do so by enlisting then on the market access platform. I'll give you my email address so that if you have any queries or you want to list on as a buyer, I can introduce you to somebody here at Proudly SA that will make that happen for you. So the work that we do is it's really about matchmaking in a way. So we're looking at securing commitments. This is the work that we do in the private sector, securing commitments, identifying specific products, linking it up with our member companies, and getting the corporates to enlist on the market access platform, and then the transactions take place. I'm quite excited to say that we have now also started our own e-commerce online store. It's a B2C store. It's transactional. We are looking to go the route of B2B. So we're quite excited to link this in the online store with the market access platform eventually. We also have an evaluation and monitoring capability on the market access platform if companies wish to give a commitment on that platform. So looking at other endeavors, we have our own Buy Local Summit and Expo. We are linking into various e-commerce platforms. So in this space, there's BizHub, BizMade. BizMade. BizMade is a member of ours, and you'll find our logo prevalent on that site. So we are going to other online stores, to negotiate a good listing fee or a commission structure, allow our members to use the logo on those sites, because the consumers are asking for local. So it's really, really nice if you can spot the local products easily and by virtue of using our logo. So that is really the idea behind connecting with other e-commerce platforms, so that when we do various campaigns throughout the year, we can then guide the buyers, whether it be the private sector or consumers, to source local from those specific sites, in addition to what we have on offer. So it's nice not to know that Proudly SA is very much open to working with other organizations. We're not working in silos because we want maximum success for our member companies. So that's the route that we've taken. There's also a local wine expo, third-party expos that we participate and take members to exhibit. That's at no cost to them. They only pay their membership fee. And then I've spoken about the commitments, where we also award the commitments at a lovely dinner supported by the presidency as well as the DTIC. Then we have matchmaking, where we link our members through to buyers. So we did a wonderful exercise at the Buy Local Summit and Expo, where we did a matchmaking exercise. So that work continues until the end of June. So we are lobbying continuously to make sure that it's the membership really, and the membership fee really goes the extra mile for our membership base. I've spoken about the market access platform as well as our website, where we've got our member product listed. We also then link in with associations or industry bodies, so that we can access all of those companies that are represented by associations, etc. One such example was the Franchise Association. We do an annual pitching session where we take our member companies to pitch to the Franchise Association. So we've had quite success with a few of our members listing on various retailers' shelves, etc. But also the corporate buyers also have a big buying power. So that really affords us the opportunity to take our members to the buyers, so to speak. And then also, this is work we did during the pandemic. We saw a nice gap. So what we did is we participated in the local manufacturing partnership, whereby we assisted over 60 companies to get over the line, so to speak, the compliance line, so that they could sell to hospitals, in both the public sector, the private sector, retailers, etc. So we focused on PPEs. And I know it's not quite this industry, but it's just to showcase what we can do for industries, once we have companies on board as our members, when the membership base is strong. So we had various portals on our website. our CEO wrote hundreds of letters to procuring entities or procuring officers within different organizations and entities to request that they source local. And we said, we are making it easier. We are directing everybody to the portal. So that's the work that we did in the COVID during the time of the pandemic. And it was quite, it's quite a hectic task to do, because the hospitals, as well as looking at the retailers, and we got to know how they procure, etc. So it wasn't always a success, but we are finding now we're quite excited about the MedTech master plan, which we are part of, and working with the department to see what we can do. We also lobby for our membership base, so we have written the Department of Health and with the DTIC to request with the ARV tender that went out. We look at specs. I know it's quite a difficult space to operate in, but for us, we're all about lobbying for support of local industry, specifically our member companies. So we did work with our members, and we wrote and we asked that even when specs are put out, that consideration must be made to how the local manufacturers package, for instance, their products, etc. So it's quite a difficult space at time, but what I'm trying to get across is really that we are playing a big supporting role, and we do have wonderful colleagues in the public sector, which I know are online. Some are participating today, so we count on those relationships, and that's the kind of work that we do. Our CEO was quite significantly important in that role for lobbying for our member companies. So it really is, if once you join the campaign, you're in good hands. We do a lot of lobbying work, introductions, etc., and we have our colleagues in the public sector that are phenomenal. There was a beautiful case study whereby we had a member company repurpose their business to make PPE so that they could keep their doors open. And I know that the employment count within that company was phenomenal. The employment came from about 2 employees to, I think it was 10 or 12. So we've got little nuggets of success, and I know it's growing every year. And this what happened in 2021. So I brought back an old slide just to share with you how it's helped our member companies. We also link in with tenders that government does put out. So what we monitor the tenders that are being put out. We then extract the tenders, send it off to our membership base. If they're on the CSD, they can do business with government. We then step away. And also just to make mention that we have a tender monitoring function that links into that kind of work. So we also send off these tenders to the DTIC to monitor any local content provisions within tenders. So we know who used to play ball when the designation was still very much alive and well, who's playing ball in the past versus who's playing ball now. And it allows us then to write entities to ask that they consider including local content provisions going forward. And then also on the CSD side is if you are not yet on the CSD and you are a member of Proudly SA, we are not able to link you in with the CSD without you having to do a separate application or listing process. So our system is very much linked to the CSD, and it's another benefit for our membership base. Brilliant. I spoke about CSD integration, tender monitoring, and then lobbying work that I've also made mention of. Consumers, I won't touch on this because this is not I know advertising space is really not on the hot pharma side. That advertising is quite limited in terms of, advertising to consumers directly, but we are looking at over-the-counter products. You'll find that we do have great partners such as Adcock Ingram, which is our member company, utilizing the logo for those products. So we are very much supportive of the work that they do, as well as other companies, smaller businesses, etc. So we're doing what we can on the consumer side. But yes, so I want to leave you with with our ad, and just to it's a campaign that really started back in 2020. This is the second leg of the the campaign, it really speaks to what legacy it is that we're leaving behind. So we called the first ad Game Time because when COVID struck, we had to close the borders. We could not import any products, and really the local industry, local companies had to keep the country going, keep us alive. And they did. And that was phenomenal. So it was our way to stop and think, and then being forced to support local, and then halftime, stop and think again. And really, this is now our chance to shine. And I think with the trade wars that are happening all around us, it also is perhaps a way for us to find our way again, to really uplift the local market, for us to shine again. So it's all about the legacy that we plan to leave behind to our children. And then I've got one Chair, Anele, I've got one more slide to share, and it's the membership fee. But I'll quickly play you this. Thank you.
There's a voice that is calling, loudly calling, day by day, the voice of the future.
When I started my business, all I wanted was to create jobs and a legacy for the next generation, because I see opportunity when others see impossibility.
It all started with a thought and then a seed in the garden, which grew into my very own farm that feeds the whole nation daily.
Cotton, silk, and a little bit of treasure, I create masterpieces that give South Africans an identity, comfort, and confidence, because when you look good, you feel good.
From the factory workers to the warehouse and then over the seas, I want to show the world what proudly South African looks like. It all started with just some ink on paper and inspiration to bring people together. With my furniture, I now help create spaces that are beautiful, comfortable, and authentic to human light and connection.
I've always been driven by curiosity. It fueled my dreams to create automobiles that accelerate our nation into greater possibilities and the beauty of the unknown.
I was born into a rainbow nation. My life has been full of colors and mixed flavors. And when I started my bakery, I wanted to share the joy with the world and with South Africans in particular.
All I ever dreamt of was to be a bird and fly high. And now I have the wings to help others fulfill their dreams of flying high too.
But it can only be a dream until you make it a reality. All they need is your faith, your trust, your loyalty, your appreciation.
And most importantly,
Your support
because supporting local businesses
Helps create jobs
and secures our future.
South Africa, their future is in your hands. So what are you going to do about it? Be proudly South African. Buy local to create jobs. There's a
Brilliant. This is our membership fee structure. So membership is really affordable. We haven't increased fees since 2017, and it is all dependent on each company's annual sales turnover. So as you grow, so your membership fee increases. So we do think it's been well received, the membership fee structure. So for any company not on our that's joined, that's not a member of ours, we really implore you to join as a member company. And for those who've joined, who want to link into our localization programs, I'll put my email address in the chat for you, and then I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Janine. Thank you so much. Thank you for that was so beautiful. You used children because it just sets the tone of when we should getting people to be proudly South African. Thank you so much for that. I'll introduce our next speaker, who is a proudly South African member, Diane Neethling. She is the CEO of IMSEA Health Products. I hope I said that right, Diane. You'll say it right for us. And as a proudly South African member, she's going to share, tell us about her business and just how she's been operating on the local markets, company milestones, challenges, and what it is that she's learned, and any advice that she is going to give anyone in the pharmaceutical industry, and what she sees, as opportunities in the South African pharmaceutical industry. Diane, over to you.
Good morning. Good morning. Yes, can everybody see my screen? Let me just get that all good. Is that fine? Can you see anything yet?
Yes, we can.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. I'm still stuck in the lost space. All right, so warm welcome for myself. I am, yes, a proudly SA member, and I think I was looking one of my certificates the other day, and I think as long as you've been going, I think that's as long I've been a member, so, and very proudly so. So for myself, I am the CEO of Imsizer, I'd like to say Holdings, and I'll explain why I say that, but that's part of the, that is the Imsizer Health business, and been doing that for more than 15 years. Let me just move myself out of the sunlight over here. No one shared the bio unless if it's up there for, available. Imsizer was originally just selling natural health products. We are in the B2B space and we are in the B2C space, and I'll explain that a little bit later as well. And then what complicates the matter is I own the IP, and we then source all the raws from various spaces and places, send that to our manufacturing plant because we obviously perform under the big pharma rules and regulations. That gets manufactured, sent back to us, and from there we distribute it to be it wholesalers, retailers, and all the client. So very much quite a multi-streamed business. And yeah, I'm well within my calling. I love doing what I'm doing. And it's always been great when we've been sponsored. And that is a bit more recent in the DTI space under the cosmetic board of Sarkoza, because I'm doing health skincare as well. We have managed to get to take our products across the borders, both more locally and abroad. And the Proudly SA logo has always been, just so nice to support with what we're doing and saying. So from my side, yeah, we've, as I said, try and support local as far as we can, using local manufacturers, local supply chains, local drawing of our raw materials from the earth, literally, from our farmers, going through a process where people take their raws, they dry them and process. I want to say, although I speak out of a big pharma voice, I'm not big pharma. We manufacture natural health products. So there's a big difference, but not a big difference in the bigger scheme of things, because the laws, the rules, the regulations fall under the big pharma. It is a not so pleasant experience because, as I said, we've been busy doing business for 15 years, and the compliance has really become the cutthroat part of the equation in trying to keep, our head above the water, especially even after COVID. But yeah, I'm committed. I'm passionate about, health, natural health. I'm passionate about beauty. I'm passionate about South Africa, and I just love being in the space that I am. So from my own side, I'm going to carry on to the next slide. Just want to see, can you see anything? I can't see from my side anything happening. Yeah, I'm trying to see if the next slide. Why is nothing happening here? All right, there we are. Can you see the next slide?
Yes, we can.
All right, wonderful. You must just stop me if something's out of whack. So I'm going to actually stop my presentation other than telling you a bit about myself. The next slide says Imsizer structuring, and it's been my hardest learning curve in the industry because we are always at risk But one of the things that I had to do halfway through the equation was look at the company, the structure, and restructuring the company to protect myself, to protect my IP, protect my trademark. And as I said, I even went through the whole court process from a partner. So I think a lot of us understand. We speak from a place where we do all our learning curves, and that's exactly why this slide is actually first on my in my set of slides, just to say it is the most important thing that I've learned on the journey. So restructuring, putting a holding company in place, putting certain parts of the IP and the company assets into different companies that do different things. And I hope that can help somebody else, but it definitely has made a huge difference. I did get somebody in to help me with that, but it was one of the first things that I needed to do. As far as the various other questions on the group, if you can see the next slide, we've been in business, as I said, for 15 years, mostly initially natural health, health products, keeping us in the bigger pharma space, but then somewhere in COVID, and then obviously exposure on the international platform, it gave me access to start looking deeper and to spread my wings a bit more. And I went into the beauty space and kept it simple. I took I have the breast probiotic, I think, in the marketplace, took that IP and used it in my skincare products. And from there, our whole product range, I think there's now 10 products. Some of them are my Reed branded because you have an internal, what I call an inside-out approach to skincare. And skincare and all healthcare is an inside-out approach anyway. And from that grew my skincare range. That's a baby. It's still finding its feet. We've established a nice market share in the local industry through our network. And once again, it's always about network. As far as challenges are concerned, I have mentioned all of them here, and I probably mentioned them just now. The biggest hurdle still ongoing is the regulatory process, because I don't think when we all got started, this is more than 15 years ago, they were as intense as they are. And falling in the big pharma space, obviously that makes it really very hard to manage and keep up, especially if you're still a small business and growing. So the regulatory processes affect your business both locally and when you're trying to establish the business or take the same products and try and export them, because each country has its own set of regulatory rules and the way they do things. So I found that quite challenging, and it's always work in progress. So in the same breath as talking about the regulatory processes, because we actually can't move products if we move out of that space. That also confines your product moving into other countries and then accessing market, because you've really got to go through all of that. It is simpler when you've got it in place in South Africa, but it still needs to be replicated with their rules and regulations. So that's quite a journey. Having said that, all of this can only happen when we have wings and join hands with partners. Obviously, I use South African raw, South African manufacturing, South African manufacturers. The teams are local. And whenever you're spreading your wings, you're trying to look at local for the simple reason, if we don't support each other and support ourselves, I don't think we have any ability to really make a proudly SA statement. So I really try from my side to do that. And I think it's very important, because I have found when I look at market accessing the local marketplace, I find there's a lot of products, be it China, India, whatever, which puts smaller companies at risk, doesn't really give us a leeway. And I think it's probably based on the pricing. They find, the cheaper versions. I do believe South Africa's really got the best products as in the skincare, healthcare, natural care. We've really got amazing products and manufacturers. So I hope that can change. yeah, because my biggest market is Dis-Chem and Clicks, and I would like to see more South African products there. Yeah, I think for me, that would be just wonderful. And a lot of the problems that we have is that we often have an opportunity to take these products and we run the risk of having them replicated. It is a big no-no in the industry, but it happens all the time and puts us at risk, maybe makes us a little bit more wary. But yeah, I'm just hoping that one day most of our products on the shelves will be locally made and proudly South African. On my next slide, I'd like to just address, gosh, this morning, sorry, can you see that slide yet? Let me just take that one out. Can you see the next slide? Sorry about that.
The key value chain overview.
Yes, yes.
Yes,
so
we can.
This slide is pretty much just discussing the various, the arms and the legs and the feet that we have in the business. And I think the point is we all need, the research and development happening. We all need the manufacturing, the raw sourcing happening. We all need the compliance to actually distribute, the supply chains. We need all of that. It's just holding the right hands. And I have found, even quite recently, you continually need to work at that. It is not necessarily hard work, but if you don't do that and continually look for the best space and place to begin in your best products, to keep up with the latest of trends, and make it your business continually more, affordable to run, to stay in the space. This is where I feel the biggest challenges are, yet the biggest potential breakthrough. Looking at different shipping agents, continue doing updates, because you continue to have to shop to get that better price. Because I found, especially since COVID, when there were some of the raw ingredients we needed to bring in, and as we mentioned earlier, it was a challenge to get some of those raw ingredients in, that might make or break your whole production line. And of course, constant research and development, looking at what is trending in the marketplace, what do people really want. These are the processes that constantly need attention. The licensing, I've mentioned that, the regulatory process, all of that is really the bigger picture that keeps you busy. And then obviously sourcing, constantly looking for clients and or doing your relevant marketing. From the regulatory process, I think everybody knows and understands there is a process that all runs hand in hand. Now, I've heard this morning with Proudly SA, you're not going to get anything done if you're not registered with the Department of Health. So too with the South African Pharmacy Council, so too the SAPRA. And we need regulatory pharmacists on board. But the systems talk to each other, which is a good thing. I don't think previously it used to work like that. And what it means is whatever's being done on the one system flows into the other, which is, obviously in the bigger scheme of things, a good thing. I think a lot has changed and been taken out of the hands of the owner of the business, be it the CEO or the director or just whoever's running the business, because there's a lot of emphasis on the pharmacist running the show and taking responsibility for everything that is said, done, moved in any form or shape, even your marketing. So there are very strict rules and regulations that have now come into place. I find it hard and difficult, although I do understand it, because when the smaller companies do take a strain in trying to stay compliant with constant changes in the rules and regulations, the updates and all the rest. But it is very important. Clearly, we were long past the days where I never manufactured in a garage, but the age-old story from manufacturing somewhere at a home and taking those products and putting on shelf. Those days are done, and it's good, because we do need to look after, we need to stand up for those regulatory processes which keep that type of thing off the shelves. Let me just carry on with the next slide. I think one of the nicest advantages from being a Proudly SA member more recently, there's various platforms, online platforms that came to play, especially after COVID. I mean, we all know them from the Take-A-Lots to the SA businesses and all the rest. But now we've gone from merely having a presentation as a company to a portal that has the ability to sell the products, and that's amazing, because I think if any portal and or online portal is going to truly represent South African businesses, it would be Proudly South Africa. So I'm super excited. There were a couple of challenges, and I think we're still in the process of moving what was a platform, but a non-selling platform, and we're in those processes. But I'm sure all the hiccups have been ironed out. But that is what I'm really looking forward to, because at the end of the day, no business is a standalone entity. And the hands we hold, be it from a networking perspective, from a linking perspective, from joining hands with other local producers, manufacturers, and suppliers, this is where we really want to be. So I'm very happy. And the new online trend is slow in South Africa, but I believe we need to be ahead of the times and really be ready, so that when South Africans are comfortable and feel safe in that environment, you know, with a lot of the card scamming and all the rest, there's still a bit of hesitancy. I mean, it's a global problem, but I think that is where I really think the future is going to be. So from my side, having said all of that, I think holding hands, I forgot to mention the DTI, and it's been one of my biggest, they've been my biggest support, more on the beauty side than necessarily on the health pharma side. And I hope to change that going forward, to reach out and, you know, having opportunities to expose the products globally is really, you know, it's actually making a Proudly SA statement. So that is something I still need to work on. I just quite haven't found those opportunities, but there have been tremendous aid, and the connectedness between societies and being on groups has been an amazing journey for me, and I just love that part of the equation. So from my side, I'm Diane Neethling, and there are all my details. I am open to questions a little bit later. If there's anything that I haven't addressed, you're welcome to ask or ask me to address that. But yeah, manufacturers of the natural health beauty space, and Proudly South African. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Diane. You know, when you started your presentation, I was like, oh, it's great to hear from someone who is a member of Proudly South African, and also just to share how that's been beneficial to them. And also you mentioned that at the end as well. So thank you for that. And I loved the last part where you said, get online. It's a no-brainer, you know, so that you can spread and expand your business. I do have questions for you, but I will keep them when we open our Q&A. And I would like to encourage anyone else who has questions for Diane just to note them. And when we open up the Q&A, we'll have an opportunity to engage with her. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Looking forward to that.
I would like to now introduce our next speaker, who is Khadija Jamluddin. I hope I got I've been trying to practice these surnames and names, but Khadija will let me know if I said her surname correctly. She is from the Department of Health and is the Chief Director for Health Product Procurement under the National Health Insurance. And Khadija is tasked today to speak on the Department of Health's localization efforts and how the department has made efforts, you know, in procuring from local companies, and how the local companies can further partner with the Department of Health in terms of the pharmaceutical industry. Diane, if you can please stop sharing your screen so that we can give Khadija an opportunity to share her screen.
Okay, I'm just gonna share my presentation quickly.
All right. If Diane can end sharing her presentation, thank you. All right. Thanks, Khadija.
Thank you very much, Anele. And I'm used to people mispronouncing my name and surname, so don't feel bad. Okay, and thank you very much for the opportunity to speak
Please
to
say your surname for me so that I know how to say it properly.
Okay, so it's Jamaluddin. And the
Jamaluddin.
Jamaluddin. So the way to remember it is Jamal means beautiful and Deen means religion. So it's like two words that goes Jamaluddin.
Oh, perfect. I'll definitely remember that. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. I just wanted to say thank you for giving us this opportunity. I think it is a very valuable opportunity to explain to people what our requirements are. Because often there's a narrative out there that, you know, the department does not support local manufacturers, etc. But I think in the end, it's about people understanding the rules for participation, right? And a lot of the negative media reports that we had over the past couple of years was because our bidders did not comply. And so they go to the media and then they say, oh, the department didn't award a tender to us because we were a local manufacturer, look how bad they are, etc., etc. But it's because the supplier themselves, the bidder themselves, did not understand the rules. So I'm just going to go through some of the rules which are very important for us and which people need to take into consideration, especially the local manufacturing companies. Because once the tender closes, once the bid closes, we can't go back and ask for more information. Even if you do have it, even if you are compliant, because we say very clearly in our documents, please submit a complete set. If we ask for a license, submit the license. The license must be valid, etc. So I'll go through that right now. There are various prescripts that we have to comply with. Obviously, it's a very highly regulated space in terms of pharmaceutical procurement. So we have to comply with not only Treasury regulations, but also the Medicines and Related Substances Act. So we've got like a double whammy. It's not necessarily like, buying furniture or cars or stationery or etc. And the important thing to remember is this is about people's lives, right? So if the medicine isn't there at the time when patients need it, there is a very serious consequence to that. And that's why we have to take a lot of, things into consideration when we structure the bid documents, when we make awards, etc. So I'm just going to go through some of the requirements. Aside from the Treasury regulations, PFMA, BBBEE, all of that, there are documents. There is a document that is published with our bid pack that's called the Special Requirements and Conditions of Contract. I just want to inform participants on this call. All our documents are available on the website. Everything. If it is a medicine selection decision to say we're going to use this drug versus that drug, it's available on the website, the reasons, etc. So we subscribe to the principle of transparency in the interest of good governance, because as you know, when you're dealing with tenders, the corruption word, is a huge specter that looms, and we want to make sure that we actually very transparent. People know what we are doing, and people know how we are doing things. So therefore, we publish a number of documents, and one of them is the Special Requirements and Conditions of Contract. And I'm just going to go through some of the requirements. So we do have a definition of a locally produced product, and this was a definition that came from the National Treasury tenders already, which we've incorporated. And it is limited to the formulation and conversion processes that use materials and components to manufacture medicines within the Republic of South Africa. So you will notice that this does not include packaging. And I'll take you back to why it does not include packaging, right? If we look at the cost of a medicine, say the medicine costs 100 Rand. The active pharmaceutical ingredient that goes into that medicine is approximately 70%. So already 70 Rand of that 100 Rand goes into API. Most of our API is imported. So already how much is left for local, local input? It's 30%. So if you are doing packaging, Anele, I see your hand is up.
Yes, I wanted to check. Have you moved on to the second slide in your presentation?
Yes, it says requirements for local manufacturing.
Yes, because that is not showing as the main slide. Can you maybe move down to it so that we can just see that information as you are speaking?
My word.
Because it's still on your cover slide.
Oh my word. Okay, let's try again. I'm going to stop share. No, I've got a problem with my mouse. Oh my word.
Okay, no problem. I just wanted to make you aware of that. There you go.
Okay, you know what? I think I've okay, so I'm going to share again.
It's on now.
Is it on now? Okay.
Yes.
So
Thank
I just took out the second screen. I think that was the problem.
Okay.
Can you see it now? Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. No problem. Apologies for that. I should have thought about the second screen when I started. Okay. So as I was saying, the locally manufactured or the price of the product, 70% goes into the active pharmaceutical ingredient, most of which is imported. Now, if you're not doing formulation, you're only doing packaging, it's a fraction of the 30% that's left. And remember, you still have other costs included in that 30%, which includes logistics, your profit, etc. Right? So the packaging does not contribute much in terms of the contribution to the local manufacturing, etc. In terms of employment, etc. So we agreed with DTI as well as with National Treasury that we would not look at packaging. And the second more important reason why we did not include packaging is because you have foreign manufacturers who manufacture the product overseas and then bring it to South Africa for local packaging and then claim the full value of local manufacturing. So it's like gaming the system. So we were of the opinion that, this is not something that would actually contribute much to the economy. And actually the money is still not staying within the boundaries of South Africa, and it's not really a South African product. So we've agreed on that definition. I'm moving along. So one of the requirements is that when we buy medicines for government, the requirement is that the product must be registered with the South African Health Products Regulatory Authority, and that's SAHPRA. There's always this narrative that the products that are available in the public sector are for poor people, they're cheap, they're not of the same quality, and we would just like to dispel that, narrative. Because if a product is registered with SAHPRA, then we know that the safety, efficacy, and quality of that product has been attended to. And so it doesn't matter who you are accessing the product, whether you're accessing it in the private sector or the public sector, the products must be safe, efficacious, and of good quality, and that's why we want it registered with SAHPRA. When you as a bidder are placing your bid, right, there's a requirement that the bidder must be indicated as the applicant on the medicine registration certificate. And the reason we do that is because the Act is very clear about who state can buy medicines from. It says we have to buy directly from the manufacturer because the manufacturer is responsible for every aspect of that medicine right up to the time it reaches the patient. So any adverse events, etc., the applicant is responsible. And so with middlemen, in our past experience, when we did have, these third parties, when there was a supply issue, they would backtrack. They said, "It's not our product. We don't know. I'm sorry, we can't help you." So there's two very good reasons why the bidder must be indicated as the applicant on the medicine registration certificate. Additionally, if you are going to claim preference for local manufacturing, the site of registration must be listed, the site of manufacture, that's a typo. Site of manufacture must be listed on the MRC and the site must be in South Africa. So if you're going to be manufacturing in South Africa at a particular site, that site must be listed on your medicine registration certificate, so that we can make sure that that site is indeed compliant with SAHPRA requirements, and SAHPRA is aware that that is where the manufacturing is going to take place. And then this is my last slide, and then obviously I'm sure there'll be more discussions as we go into the question session. But also, these are very important because this is make or break for many of the bidders. Your license to manufacture, together with all the annexures, and it is in the special requirements and conditions of contract, must be valid at the closing time and date, and they must be submitted together with your bid. Also, we look at previous supplier performance. remember, we are dealing with patient lives. So if we know that the supplier is not somebody that's reliable, the contract award to this particular person becomes quite problematic, because we know down the line, and we've got decades of experience with this, is that suppliers who are problematic stay problematic. They somehow, I don't know, they can't fix the internal problems, etc. So we do look at previous supplier performance when we do look at whether or not we're going to award future contracts. There is a very prominent local manufacturer who, in not this ARV tender, in the previous ARV tender, was awarded a contract, and that company was awarded a contract on the basis that they're a local manufacturer. And for the entire duration of the contract, they were not able to supply a single pack of that particular product. But luckily, it was a high volume item, and there were other suppliers which we had contracted with, so we could manage the situation. But imagine if it was the single supplier for a life-saving medication who was not able to supply for the entire duration of the contract. And then, you know, at the end of the day, the narrative isn't, oh, the supplier is at fault. It's the Department of Health is unable to manage. Look what, you know, what belugas they are. We also look at capacity to fulfill volumes. And what we tell bidders when they complete their documents is to be honest about their capacity. Because if we say we need 1 million packs and you are only able to supply 500,000, but you're the highest scoring bidder, the tendency is to award 500,000 packs to the highest scoring bidder and the remaining volume to the other suppliers. So just because you can't, fulfill the entire volume does not mean that you as a supplier cannot participate in that tender. Okay. Obviously, we expect bidders to comply with all clauses of the special requirements and conditions of contract. So if we say we need a bid response document that's complete, we need all documents that must be signed. And those are the kind of things that come up where bidders are disqualified because they didn't do, you know, the attention to detail kind of things, which either makes or breaks a contract award to them. And it has happened in the past where we couldn't award to particular suppliers because they did not comply with one or more of the special requirements and conditions of contract. And remember, for us, although we comply with Treasury regulations, with the Medicines Related Substances Act, we also have scrutiny from the Auditor General. So if there's something that's not correct, it becomes irregular expenditure, and it doesn't mean irregular expenditure if it is declared in the AG report and the financial statements, etc. The lay public sees it as, oh, there's corruption. So, just managing those kind of perceptions, we need to be clear about what our requirements are, which is clearly articulated in the special requirements and conditions of contract. When bidders don't abide to that, unfortunately, we have to pass them over. And, it is a compliance issue. And therefore, we're asking bidders, please read everything and submit all the documents as requested. And as I said, there's no opportunity afterwards to go and ask for more documents, because that is then seen as not compliant. So bidders are requested to include all documents in the bid pack. So for us, just to sum up, the quality of the product is very important. For us, the security of supply issues are very important because we are dealing with patient lives. Whenever we hear of stories of patients who are disadvantaged in some way or the other because a supplier cannot supply, I always tell my team, this is on our watch. How did we not pick it up, and why did we not attend to that matter? And one of the things that we ask suppliers, if you know that you have a supply constraint, there's a challenge coming up, tell us at first knowledge. And if the intention is not to be punitive, the intention is to make a plan in time so that the patient doesn't feel that there's a problem in the background. So the patient experience for us is very important. I just wanted to also mention that our tenders are advertised on the Department of Health website. All our documents are there, all the addendums, contract circulars, whatever you want is on the website. And it's also published on the e-tender portal. I'm going to stop there because I have a feeling there'll be a lot more conversation in the question session, and also my voice is running out. But thank you very much, Anele, for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Khadija. I do have some questions for you, but as I said with Diane, I we'll keep them to the end. But I do appreciate you saying that, all these things are available publicly, the processes of how people can bid and all that, because a lot of the times we do think maybe the department or the government is not giving opportunities to small businesses. And maybe we just, as people, don't go and find the information that can help us then bid. And also what I also loved is you dispelling the narrative of that public health products are of a lesser value, because it's proper manufacturers and pharmaceuticals who are actually producing those, and I don't think you would intentionally want to give your citizens products that are not of quality and not of value. So thank you so much for that. I will share my questions with you at the end. I would like to now invite Dr. Michelle Mulder. She is the Executive Director responsible for grants, innovation, and products development at the South African Medical Research Council.
Thank you very much, Ellen, and good morning to all the participants and attendees. As you heard, my name is Michelle Mulder. So I run the Grants, Innovation and Product Development Unit at the SAMRC. And what we do is we manage most of the external grant mechanisms and all innovation. Now, you might be asking, how does the South African Medical Research Council come into pharmaceuticals? What I can say is that we don't produce pharmaceuticals, we don't fund pharmaceutical companies, but what we do is early stage discovery, and we support early stage discovery for pharmaceuticals, but also vaccines and either biologicals, diagnostics, medical devices, etc. And so, I guess we fit really up the high end of the value chain. The other thing to mention is that localization is very much at the forefront of what we're doing. So all our investments when it comes to product development, innovation, even early discovery, is to make sure that we are researching what's relevant to our continent, to our populations, and that we're enabling a health innovation system that can bring local products to market, ideally for local manufacturers. So we've even got some initiatives around local manufacture, both in the pharmaceutical, vaccine, but also in the medical devices space. So I'm just going to share my presentation with you, and let me know when you can see it, and I'll just put it onto full screen. Just tell me when it is on full screen.
All right, I can see it. We'll just wait for it to be on full screen. Yes, it is.
Okay, so
thank you.
Thanks a lot. So what I thought I would do is just take you through a bit of an overview of what the MRC does, our core functions, and then I'll talk a little bit more about how we specifically support in the pharmaceutical, natural products, and even biological space. So the MRC has 4 core functions. You may know we're a parastatal established by an act of parliament, and we report directly to the Minister of Health as our line department. We conduct research, we fund research, we develop research capacity, and we facilitate innovation. And that is all supported by a core support department that enables what we do. So just by way of illustration, our revenue last year, in 2023-24, we're still doing our statements for last year, it was about 1.3 billion Rand. And just under 50% of this comes from the baseline grant from government, so through the Department of Health. And the rest we bring in through contracts and funding partnerships. So it's to do research on specific projects, but also to bring in money from elsewhere in South Africa, but also other international funders to support the larger research and innovation ecosystem in South Africa. So we support around 74 innovation projects a year, 184 career awards, and around 200 to 300 different research grants. So we support research and innovation through a number of different mechanisms. We have our intramural research units. We have our platforms like our Genomics Center and Malaria Research Group and our Biomedical Research and Innovation Program. We have extramural research units situated at the universities. Our strategic research initiatives are normally through bilaterals with other governments. And then I mentioned the unit that I run, which is Grants, Innovation and Product Development. And then we also have a Research Capacity Development unit, which also reports to me. So this is just a snapshot of our intramural research units, alcohol, tobacco, and drug abuse research unit. Burden of disease looks at keeping up to date on statistics on what is causing morbidity and mortality in South Africa. Biostatistics unit for biostat support on studies. We have a unit at Stellenbosch, which is classified as an intramural unit on TB. Our Cochrane Centre gathers evidence on different diseases, different interventions, and collates that for policy. Environmental and Health Research Unit, obviously looking at climate and health and environmental pollutants and so on. Gender and Health, very much focused on gender-based violence. Our HIDRA unit, HIV and Other Infectious Diseases Research, based in Durban, conducts clinical trials, usually on infectious diseases and usually on vaccines and prevention. Our Health Systems Research Unit obviously does a lot of research on health systems, mostly to support the National Department of Health in policy and practice. And then finally, our NCD unit focuses on cardiovascular, diabetes, and other non-communicable diseases. This is a list of our extramural research units, which I won't go through, but just to show that we support a very wide variety of different types of research, different priority areas, and different centers around South Africa. So this is the unit that I manage, and in blue on the left are the what we call the strategic projects and programs. Then we have our MRC-specific grants in orange. And then in purple and green, we have the strategic funding partnerships. And then on the far right, we've got our innovation support mechanisms. So the ones that I just want to highlight here are, for example, our Project Gradient. So Project Gradient is it's actually a service that we are doing for GSK and Novartis foundations. So we are managing their grant programs for them. So they've decided to invest in research in Africa on genetic variability when it comes to reaction to drugs, particularly for TB and malaria. So what has been recognized there is obviously the populations in Africa have a much larger genetic diversity and don't respond necessarily the same to pharmaceuticals that are developed for other populations in Europe and the US. So it's very important that we understand what is the genetic basis for this, and how do we then tailor make drugs for TB and malaria that are better suited to our populations. So we're funding a number of projects through Project Gradient. Our mRNA hub is developing novel mRNA-based vaccines at the moment for HIV and TB and Rift Valley fever. Our IKS program is one I'll mention a little bit later, but it's beyond IKS. It's also in general plant-based medicines, and it's about trying to find a pathway to get natural products into the market as medicines, whether as supplements or ultimately, hopefully, as fully scheduled medicines. The other ones I want to just point out is the EU-Africa PERMED and our 110K pilot program. And this is around the personalized medicine space. So it's, again, understanding that everybody is different. And in some cases, we do need to tailor make not necessarily the drugs, but the selection of drugs, maybe the combination of drugs, and even perhaps the dosage. So it's really bringing in that the idea that if you can do a bit of screening and testing beforehand, you can really personalize the treatment or the intervention that is delivered to any particular person for. And this goes from infectious diseases to non-communicable diseases. And then I'll go through some of the others when I go through my additional slides. But this is really another way of showing how we address the different priority areas through the programs that were listed on the previous slide. So if you look down the middle, the priority areas, those are all the areas that we are supporting. And then to the left of it, the programs that we have research and innovation programs that support each area. But then importantly on the right, what we're doing is we also have cross-cutting support. So we're supporting ecosystems and we're supporting particular domains. So whether it's drug discovery, clinical trials, vaccines, etc. So we do have a lot of different initiatives all addressing the main health priorities in South Africa. Also, just to mention at the bottom in brown is a funders forum. So we in fact are members of a number of different funders forums, but we drive the Africa Health Research and Innovation Funders Forum, which is aiming to bring together all funders that fund into Africa to ensure there's better alignment so that we're not duplicating and we're making sure that we build the capacity and fund the right programs going forward. So I mentioned the ecosystem or value chain approach. So this is the approach we've started taking in the main domains that we support. So this is an example of the medical devices value chain. One of our innovation programs is MEDIC. If you look at the bottom line here, MEDIC stands for the Medical Device and Diagnostic Innovation Cluster Program. It's funded by the Technology Innovation Agency with funds from our DST. And it's really to build and support the medical devices innovation and manufacturing sector in South Africa. So this is trying to both bring new innovations that are seeded locally all the way through the value chain to commercialization, but also to see how we can support the local manufacturers of medical devices and diagnostics to be more competitive, to take on more products, to replace those products which are largely imported, and to absorb innovations that are coming from our local innovators. So I won't go through it, but you'll see all the players involved. And through MEDIC, we are providing that kind of sector-wide support. We're working very closely with the MedTech Health Master Plan, with the DTIC, and we sit on the steering committee for that and a number of the working groups. So we are aligning what we do in terms of building the medical devices space. The vaccines value chain, similarly, we're supporting. I know this is not pharmaceuticals, but it just shows the kind of approach and the types of entities that we support. So we support all the way along the value chain. And through the mRNA Hub, we've actually plugged a number of the gaps that previously existed. So we now are confident we can go from identifying which pathogens are of interest and which variants through the genomic surveillance, all the way through to developing candidates, getting them tested in phase 1, 2, 3 trials towards manufacture. And we now have, through the hub, the ability to manufacture mRNA vaccines. We're still getting the GMP accreditation for that at Afrigen and BioVac. But the idea is to have this self-sustainability in future pandemics. We're also in the vaccine space doing human resource capacity development through a partnership with the Chan Sing Shong Family Foundation, and that is essentially building the biomanufacturing workforce. We have extended this beyond vaccines to include pharmaceuticals, medical devices. So if any of the companies are interested in housing interns that are coming through this program, please do contact me. We are always looking for those, for opportunities for our interns to gain practical experience in companies, preferably in a production environment. And then finally, when it comes to vaccines, we are supporting the DSTI's infrastructure program, which is funded by KfW, with money coming from the German government. And this is really putting up to 20 million euros into investing in equipment in South Africa to be able to develop and manufacture vaccines. And it also includes digitalization of SAPRA, which I think is going to be very important in terms of registering and conducting clinical trials and getting the approvals to do those trials for pharmaceuticals in the future. And then finally, the IKS or plant-based medicines value chain. So we are working with 2 traditional healers who have complex plant mixtures and trying to get those standardized, tested in laboratories for activity, for toxicity, and then getting clinical grade material manufactured and taking them into phase 1 studies. And this similarly would work for other plant-based medicines. So a number of different parties already involved. We're not necessarily working with all of them, and I may have left out some of them here. this is just an illustration that it is quite a well-populated value chain, and we're supporting with funding from the MRC, from TIA, and from the DSTI. And just to finish off, the MRC is able to do all of these activities due to a number of strategic partnerships. These are collaborations for research, they're funding collaborations, funding partnerships, but also global funding initiatives that we are part of, which enable us to make sure we're on the global stage when it comes to funding and supporting R&D. Just two other things I want to mention briefly before I close. One is that we're funding a substantial drug discovery effort for TB and malaria at H3D at UCT, and we have been doing for the last 10 years. And then the other one is through the Newton Fund and funding from the UK government. We've been supporting a drug discovery hub at UP and Rhodes University for AMR, so looking at alternative drugs to address the issue of antimicrobial resistance. And we're just expanding this now. We ran a new RFA last year, and we'll be making the awards. In fact, the award letters went out on Friday. So we'll be expanding those hubs for drug discovery. So I think I'll stop there and happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Michelle, for that presentation. I do have some questions for all the speakers, so I'll just start with them. What I'll do is I will read each of the questions that I have for each of you so that you just keep them in mind, and then we'll see if any of our guests who are joining us on the webinar have questions as well. So I'd like to start with Janine. My question for Janine is, and it was based on what Diane had shared, it's how do you help your members navigate the regulatory challenges that they face? You know, specifically for this being in the health and pharmaceutical industry, but if you do have maybe some case studies from other industries, you are welcome to share that. And then for Diane, the questions that I have two questions for you. And maybe because we couldn't read your bio, we didn't get the backstory, but what made you get into the health and beauty industry? And what has kept you going and in business for 15 years? So that's question one. And then the next question is, who do you think has the responsibility of ensuring more South African products are in our stores and people are buying them over the Asian products? Because you did mention, you know, China, Indian products. So who do you think is responsible for ensuring that we procure more South African products in our stores? And then for Khadija, the questions are also three questions for her. How do you ensure all health products that are in the market are registered with the South African Health Products Regulatory Authority? And how many local pharmaceuticals, this might be a tricky question, but how many local pharmaceuticals do you currently procure from? And do you think there is a monopoly with the bigger and global pharmaceutical companies within our local industry? And then lastly, for Michelle, two questions for her. It's how many South African companies, and I know you listed a few companies, but for me, it's that the council works with in terms of providing the necessary assistance, either to research and development or to access to markets. And how can companies get the assistance from the council if they are looking for, whether it's research, innovation, being a member and things like that? How is it that they can reach out to you and be part of the council? So I'll ask Janine to answer first because she's got one question. And then if any of the other speakers are ready to answer, can they just raise their hands or put on their videos, and then we'll get them to answer their questions. And like I said, if any of the other guests do have questions for our speakers, please do write them in the chat and I'll read them out so that the speakers can answer. Janine?
Thank you, Nele. And that's a great question. Just wanted to mention that. So our role really is, we bring on board companies that are market ready. So they would have gone through all of the processes in terms of compliance. Because of our logo is a mark of quality. So what we do is we to assist companies who are possibly not yet members or members who need further assistance in this space. We refer them to the partners, to the verification bodies, the companies or entities or organizations that can help them to comply. And this webinar is one such example. It's to bring parties together to explain what is needed for companies to comply, what's the red tape like, etc. So we ourselves cannot assist directly, but we most certainly will tap into our networks to help our member companies further. Or companies who come on board who do not comply with our quality criteria, for instance, we'll then refer them to the correct regulatory authority to help them further. I hope that answered the question.
Yes, it did. And I think also from the last part that you've shared, I was going to ask that as well, leading from what you're sharing is, what if someone, what is the word? They sign up to be members and then you see that maybe they haven't followed all the requirements.
Processes, yes.
Yes. Do you then give them another chance to say, this is what you need, this is who you can go to before we can actually then give you that stamp of approval and for you to actually become a member?
100%. So it depends on what the product offering or service offering is. If there are products that do comply already, then membership will be awarded for those products. The company comes on board, he or she is a member, and then those products that comply will then can then be included as products on our database of local products and services. And then the other items will be excluded until such a time that it complies. If the business is making a product that is just a single product, and it doesn't comply, we don't award membership for that until such a period that they do comply. So we're very patient. Sure, and walk the road with the companies. Sure.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Janine. I saw Diane's hand go up, so I'll go to her. Do you need me to repeat the questions for you, or are you fine with them?
Yes, I'm fine with them. Thank you very much.
Okay.
As typically, more than 15 years ago, there was an opportunity and I grabbed it. And I think that's really how most of us actually start. What kept me going is a very different, was something very different. I believe with my whole heart, I had a calling for people, for just the natural and wanting to help. And that is what kept me going. I don't think anything else, because as I mentioned in my talk, that there's so many challenges. So between the challenges and just trying to keep your head above water with all the battles up and down, that classically would drown anybody and make you run away. But if your calling keeps you rooted, and I have to be honest, it's the only thing that has kept me there. Nothing else. It's just this passion and desire to be of service and to help people, and we've seen that. But yes, has it been an easy journey? Absolutely not. Are we still doing all the regulatory struggles? Yes, we are. But it's my passion that has kept me going, and I thank God for that, really. As far as the second question is concerned, I don't know if that answers that, but really that's it. From as far as the rest is concerned, I don't think I, Diane, in my company, MSizer, can make the difference to change the hearts of those buyers in a space like a Dis-Chem or a Clicks or the ShopRites or the whatevers. I believe that's where it would be great if there was somebody in Proudly SA that could take over and make that difference. I really believe the buyers are so bombarded. I mean, obviously for years now, we've been working with the different buyers. So you have meetings or you have a key accounts that represents your company, either or, depending on the buyer. They are so bombarded with everything coming their way. that they don't stop to think about local and proudly SA. So if it could be that somebody went out and actually generated or created that level of awareness, or a bigger level of awareness, especially where we are now, where South Africa is not exactly in that happy space, and somebody could go and just motivate that. I think that would make the big difference, because there isn't an awareness. I think everybody's just, trying to do business, and they forget there's a local, beautiful local market that needs attention, and it's the buyer's job to actually open up that door, and stop to think before they actually just allow other. Look, clearly most of our drugs are coming from other global sources, and we can't stop that. Like Jamalina said, she said we can't stop the manufacturing of the drugs and whatever. But if we can start somewhere where the things that are less critical, meaning your typical drugs and whatever, we can just start with natural health products and open up the doors. I think it would be great if somebody could do that, because many companies in the beauty space have been bitten by the copyrights and all of that. And yes, it's your own responsibility to put all your IP in place and get your documents right to protect yourself. But even if that happened, you can't really help when that's happening and the buyers are lying. I can't use any examples, because that would be crucifying myself and crucifying anybody that's actually shared that. But there's a lot of that happening, and I'd like that not to be the case, if I could say it in a nice way, please.
All right. Thank you so much. You answered those questions very well. Khadija, I saw your camera was on. Would you like to answer next?
Yes, thank you, Anneli. Sorry about that. I just had to open the gate quickly.
No problem.
So your question was for all products registered with SAHPRA. So one of the conditions of our tenders is that the product must be registered with SAHPRA, and that the bidder must submit the medicine registration certificate or the variation summary. So that is how we make sure that the products we get in or that are on contract are registered products. So I think that was the easiest question so far. The second question is slightly more complicated, right? So you asked how many local pharmaceutical companies there are, right? So now you must understand we work in a very complicated space, because the company...
Yes, it's how many you procure from as your age.
It depends on the product.
Okay.
Because I'm just going to use Aspen as an example, right? I'm going to take the liberty and use Aspen as an example. They have a whole catalog of products. Some of it is manufactured in South Africa and some of it is not. So it depends on the product. And that's why it's difficult to say how many local pharmaceutical companies do we procure from. It's a mixed bag, and it depends on the particular item. So I'm going to just give you an example. If you're talking about ointments like your petroleum jelly and your aqueous cream, 100% of the products on that tender is bought from local manufacturers. If it's something like oncology products, very little of those products are actually manufactured in South Africa. So the probability of a local manufacturer submitting a bid is very low. And therefore, the probability of awarding to a local manufacturer is even lower. Okay, so it depends on the product. If it's something like ARVs, for example, we want to drive competition. But we also, when we make the award, think about our local manufacturing capacity, because we want to keep that in-house, right? So then that's where we play the juggling game, trying to look at this particular context compared to that. And we try to make a fair award as far as possible. So we have been, challenged legally on some of our awards. And I must say, because we work to principle, we have won those legal challenges. So if there are any questions, and if Proudly South Africa want to engage further with us on how to empower your members to be better bidders, I think that's where the problem is. We're happy to engage with that, because we want South African products, right? It's just when the products don't meet the quality standards or the documents are not up to scratch, And then therefore we can't award, because then that puts us in a challenge as far as the Auditor General is concerned, or a legal challenge from other bidders, etc., etc. So we're happy to engage with Proudly South Africa on how to empower your bidders to submit better bids, which increases their chances of actually winning a contract, right? Then you asked me about monopolies from international companies. So the monopolies come from the innovator companies where there's intellectual property and patents. So that's where, you know, there's no other competition available, then they would dominate the market. And we just price takers, we have no option. And where there is competition, that's when we become very happy. Because for us, competition means security of supply. Okay, if I have more than one supplier of a particular product, I'm very happy. Because if something happens to the one supplier, God forbid, I know I've got a backup, right? So we're very happy to help, you know, our local manufacturers. We're very happy to help get them to be better bidders, but the monopolies come from the innovator products, unfortunately, with this intellectual property and monopolies. Anelia, I saw there was a question in the question Q&A regarding supplier payments.
I did see those questions. I wanted to through, then I will go back.
Okay.
Charles' questions are questions, but thank you for that. And you engage with Proudly in terms of ensuring their members have all the and certificates. Michelle?
Thanks. So the questions that were from me were, how many South African companies do we work with for development and access to market, etc. So we largely fund academic institutions because it's public funds. Where we are able to fund private companies is if we are working with a funder who specifically wants their funding to go towards private companies, or if we so for example, the Technology Innovation Agency. So we've got a seed fund for medical devices and diagnostics, which is co-funded between the MRC and TIA. And they are happy for us to use that funding to directly to SMEs to increase local competitiveness and obviously get locally developed products through to the market. We also, through MEDIC, actually have a regulatory support initiative where we provide a grant to the CSIR, who are ISO 13485 accredited and have a lot of capability both to develop and get approval for medical devices and to get them tested and so on. So we subsidize them to actually just provide their own personal time to advise companies. So innovators, individual innovators from academic institutions and innovators from SMEs can go to the CSIR through this initiative and say, this is the device I'm working on. What class will it be in? What kind of registration do I need to get? How do I get my technical file in place? What templates do I need to fill in? What process? What do I need for an ISO 13485? What do I need for an establishment license at SAPRA? So they just give a bit of advice, and they've helped around 20 companies so far in the medical devices and diagnostics space. Just getting onto your second question, how can they be part of the council? So nobody becomes part of the council. You can become part of our family, the Health Research and Innovation ecosystem, which we strongly encourage. And that is really, I did mention the opportunities for interns. So we are training people for the manufacturing workforce. And we do believe that they would be as well trained for a pharmaceutical environment as they would be for vaccine development. We also actually this year started supporting masters in regulatory pharmacy. So we're trying to train those who can become responsible pharmacists at these companies. So we've got an MSc program, and we've supported, I think, 4 individuals this year to complete their master's degree in that. That was recognizing that there is a gap. We also have internships at SAPRA, learning the regulatory processes and possibly for future support at SAPRA in terms of assessing applications for both for clinical trials and for actual registration. And then the last thing to mention is we have an MOU with IPASA, where we are looking to see how we can work together better with the pharmaceutical industry as a whole, and support the work we do respectively within IPASA through the pharma companies and the MRC. We still need to, and we're planning that, in fact, hopefully in the next couple of months, is to get a meeting with the individual members of IPASA so that we can better understand what their needs might be and how we as the MRC can support them and how we can work together. But I think just to mention that we don't fund directly into pharma companies. We have had pharma companies fund some of the studies that we do, but we're always willing to work with them to see how we can support local health research and innovation in all areas: medical devices, vaccines, biologicals, pharmaceuticals, natural products, etc. So always happy to take questions if anyone wants to reach out to me.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Michelle. I will read the questions now, and if they are directed to a specific speaker, I'll then give them the opportunity to answer them. Okay, the first question is, thank you for the great presentations. My question is for Khadija. I would like to know, I'll read all the questions, and if the question is related to you as a speaker, please note it, and then we will go around the room per se to get you to answer the questions. Thank you for the great presentations. My question is for Khadija. I would like to know, what are the challenges that lead to the suppliers to not being paid, and that in turn makes the companies closing the accounts for the National Department of Health due to non-payment, and we end up not having the medicines in our public hospitals? And the next question is for Diane. Hi, Diane. Thank you for your presentation. Very insightful and thought-provoking. My question is for the incubation that is available with funding via your organization. I think this is actually more for Michelle. What stage of a product does a company have to be in? Because it says SAMRC. What stage of a product does a company have to be in to qualify? For example, we are currently farming and sourcing produce that we want to capsule to sell locally and hopefully abroad in due time. Would we qualify to join at this stage? The next one is from Andiswa. Thank you so much for the information. My company, Imijelo Africa, makes clinically tested and dermatologist-approved eczema products that we formulated using African natural raw materials. And Khadija's presentation has provided a lot of clarity in terms of what is required, which included being registered with SAHPRA. Diane, what advice do you have for a small business trying to scale in the natural products sector? And then Andiswa again, how can Proudly South African complying, well, maybe compliance be ready to bid, like clicks for starters? And I see Janina's time. Jade, I have never seen the value chain in this field. Will there be more information, and what will those be? There is a question from Anonymous. Which CIR departments should we as SMMEs approach for the templates and filing of medical devices? And then Eric, but would like to say this is an insightful webinar. Our small company, Senda, specializes in pharmaceutical and beauty deliveries. We currently do deliveries for Clicks pharmacies nationwide. This is a B2C, urban and rural. Thank you, Eric. And then Pavisan, sorry if I pronounce your name incorrectly. Hi, Michelle. We are a manufacturing startup working on a nanomedicine microfactory for personalized medication and have relationships with universities. Are there opportunities line with our mission of local medicine. All right, I think because Khadija was asked, then we will move to Diane and then to Michelle. And
Okay. So thank you, Aneli. So supplier payments is very close to my heart. I must be honest with you. It pains me when suppliers aren't paid. And there are two reasons for that. If suppliers know that with certainty that they're going to get paid, the probability of us getting better prices because they don't have to service their debts is greater, right? So currently we're paying more than we actually should because suppliers aren't paid on time. And that pains me. And yeah. The second thing is when suppliers place accounts on hold, and I understand it's a business decision, etc., but it just means that the provinces don't get serviced, and then ultimately patients don't get the medicine that they need. So supplier payments for us is a big matter. What we at the National Department of Health have done is helped provinces come up with an estimated budget which they can propose to their provincial treasuries and CFOs. And we've done that for the past, I think now 7 years, to say this is what we think the proposed budget is. The problem comes when the budgets that are allocated are lower than what we have proposed, which means that already you start on the back foot. Provinces don't have sufficient budget to cover the estimated need for the entire year. And then from September onwards, you see suppliers not getting paid as well as they should be. And then we go into the Christmas period and the financial year end, and it just becomes a mess. So for us, this is very close to our heart, but we try to help provinces. And I think if there's any way where Proudly SA can do the lobbying, it's to lobby the finance people to make A, more funding available for pharmaceuticals, and B, to make sure that the funding that is made available is appropriate. So you'll see in Minister of Finance budget speech, he did say he made extra funding available for pharmaceuticals, but how the CFOs and how the provincial treasuries actually action that is out of our hands. So we try to keep a foot in it. We try to make sure that we're part of the process, etc. But ultimately, because the budgets are so limited, it does become a very difficult question on how to manage the budgets. But we are on top of it. We do see it as a big risk to medicine supply, security of supply, and ultimately the care of our patients. I'm going to leave it there. Thank you, Aneli.
Thank you, Khadija. Diane, you can go on.
Yes, thank you for the questions. The one lady, I think it was a lady, asked about any incubation in the company. Could I just, well, maybe you can just share it's just diane@msiza.co.za, and let me see what her needs are and where she's hoping to go to see where I can match that and see how we can, look at that going forward. So if she's welcome, if somebody could just share my details, my telephone number and or email address, that would be great. And then as far as the other questions are concerned, how do we scale a small business? That's so hard to answer, but in reality, it's quite simple. It's just hard to do and always stay abreast financially. But ultimately, you have to really work at your offering, your product offering. And then before the product offering actually happens, you have to have all these systems that we've already mentioned in the training in place, constantly re-strategizing around that, making sure that you're on top of your game, making sure that you're doing things better. I like to sit with the brainstorming and with my staff because they are at the front line and they also know what's happening. So constantly bringing improvement, even it's the most minuscule change, so that you can either save some money or make some money and or bring a better product and or serve your clients better and be readily available. Unfortunately, the world wants quick fixes, so it's very demanding, but one needs to just stay grounded and rooted in all of that. But teamwork is very important. Staying on top of your game, staying on top of all the trends, staying on top of AI, this new big giant that is threatening to take over the world. You can't negate the fact that there is AI, and you've got to somehow link with all the new opportunities. I mean, just listening to some of the ladies, on the trainings, there's so much opportunity to network. The biggest challenge is always the cash to support that. Then you need to start getting out of the box, because the only way you're really going to grow your business, it's either a numbers thing, and that is not always the easiest thing to do, and or increase your product range or your product offering, or expand into, let's say, beauty or whatever the case, if you're doing health, so that you can generate this income. And then obviously the modern trend of online sales is just supports all of that. But if I said to you it was easy, I would be lying. If I said I would have wanted to run away many a time, yes, that is the truth. But you must make sure that you're within your calling and you're rooted in that, because that is ultimately, that is going to give you strength from one step to the next step to the next step. It's not easy. I would lie if I said that. So to bring it all together, we need to learn, we need to improve, we need to stay connected, we need to train others to take over certain jobs, we need to train others, we need to create certain trends by bringing level of awareness and education. And those are all those little tidbits that I'd love to keep on doing, because I believe the smallest of changes can be the biggest of change for our global community, which in this case is South Africa, and then the bigger community thereafter globally. One small change from one individual can make that difference, and it's just step upon step upon step. But think community, and think teaching, think training, think sharing, and I think then we can win this one.
Thank you,
I think
Diane.
that was lost a bit. I don't think there were any more questions.
No, they are.
Just sharing
Yes, please go ahead.
my details with the lady that asked about incubation.
All right, thank you. Michelle?
Thanks, Anela. So there was a question around stage of product. So we support from early discovery, in fact, all the way down to clinical studies, and in some cases even towards commercialization. But actually, we work closely with the Technology Innovation Agency, who really take over funding more at that pre-commercialization stage. So, with our seed fund, for example, one of the things that we have done in the past is, and this maybe will answer the last question around the startup, working with universities, is what we've done in the past is if there is a local product that has been developed locally from a fully local innovation with the intention to manufacture locally, and to get that product to market needs a little bit of clinical validation, or just the last bit of product tweaking, etc., and that's going to happen within a university, then that project would be eligible for funding, for example, through our seed fund program. The problem with our seed fund program is it is specific for medical devices and diagnostics, so it doesn't extend to the treatment space. But in fact, the tier seed fund, we've got two different ones. There's a tier specific seed fund, which often does include treatment in the priority areas, so just look out for that. There was a mention about the value chain. So we haven't actually drawn a value chain for the drug discovery. We do support, as I mentioned, this at H3D and through various individual projects. But the drug development, or let's say the pharmaceutical side of product development, is largely supported by TIA, Technology Innovation Agency, who are also supporting the H3D platform at UCT, but they also are funding an API cluster program. And that API cluster program is really aimed at trying to get local manufacture of APIs. So it's worth getting in touch with TIA to see how you might be able to fit into that value chain. And then finally, the CSR department, it's the census department. If you go onto the MRC website and look for, or just do a search for MEDIC, our MEDIC website, which is embedded within the MRC website, does have how to contact the CSR and how to go through the process to be able to access that regulatory support. They will do an onboarding process to find out a bit more about your product, and then they'll they'll identify what your specific needs are in terms of technical assistance, and then they'll be able to take you through that. So please do look on our MEDIC website. The person to contact there is Kahesh Dunis at the CSR, but look on the website for contact details. And I think that was all of the questions. I hope I answered the question about the nanomedicine startup. If you are linked to an academic institution, then the academic institution should really be looking at all our funding calls to look for opportunities to apply for funding.
All right, thank you. We've got 2 additional questions that came as our speakers were answering. The one question is from Mr. Mahonga. Hey guys, thank you for such an insightful webinar. I currently have a MVP or prototype for an on-demand pharmaceutical delivery app. What regulations would I have to comply with regards to this? And who can I start approaching for a project like this? And then Jade said, who does nano regulations in South Africa? How would this affect products already on the market?
So I'm not sure that I can answer those questions specifically, but I would direct you to the SAPRA website, which obviously has a lot of information about registering products. The app, so look, we are working in the digital health space as well, but we are working more and planning to work with the Department of Health to really identify their needs, as opposed to just funding, every app out there. Because if you look, there's thousands and I think probably hundreds of thousands of apps. I would suggest perhaps approaching TIA around the app for delivery, and just see if there's some interest there. But yeah, otherwise with registering the nano products, I think you would need to either see if you can find information on the SAPRA website, or contact a regulatory consultant, or you could go to the CSR and see if they could maybe, through the same channel I was talking about, and just see if they can maybe point you in the right direction as to where to get that information and what sort of regulatory sort of process that would fall under. So I hope that's of some help.
I think so. I don't know if any of our other speakers would like to jump on to answering those questions, but we are at 12:01, and we had said to finish the webinar at 12. But I would like to, just as a closing remark, give each of our speakers just a minute to give us closing remarks based on what they shared with us and what the questions that they've received and their responses. And if they'd like to share their contact details again, I'll start with Diane, move on to Khadija and Michelle, and then we'll say our goodbyes. Thanks, Diane.
From my side, I think Lesiga has my number and my email address, and you are welcome to share. I love the opportunity. I love the interaction. I learned so much from all the speakers myself. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Khadija.
Thank you, Anele. So I'm a public servant, so I have to help everybody who needs help, and you are free to reach out to me. Lesego does have my contact details, my email, as well as my cell phone. And as I said previously, we're happy to work with Proudly South Africa to make sure that our local manufacturers become better bidders. Better bidders. Maybe we should call it a project, Better Bidders Project. Thank you, Anele, and thank you everybody for your participation.
Thank you. Better bidders. I like that. Michelle?
Thank you. So, yeah, thank you very much for including us in this webinar. I think the main message I want to get across is that the MRC is very, very serious about supporting local innovations, local health research, and ideally seeing them all the way through to the market in partnership with TIA, the DSTI, the DTIC, and others. We also work closely with the industry associations, so SAMED and MDMSA, SOLDA, and others in the medical devices space. If you do need more information, I encourage you to go to our website and look under innovation. I think the best contact to use would be in MEDIC. So if you go to the MEDIC section of the website, there is a general email address, medic@mrc.ac.za. And I think if you can direct any inquiries through that. I do have an extremely large and overflowing inbox, so I think you'll get more joy if you contact that address than if you contact me directly. But thank you for including us in this webinar.
Thank you so much. Janine?
I'd just like to thank you, Anele, and thank you all the speakers and all those who've attended the webinar. Much appreciated. I'm getting good feedback on WhatsApp, so really grateful for that. Better bidders, I think, is a fantastic idea. Khadija, thank you so much. We're definitely going to take you up on that offer. And then also, we are also working with the colleagues on the MEDIC platform. So I'm looking forward to an in-person, hopefully an in-person session to discuss the work that's being put in there. So more to follow, everybody. So thanks so much. All the best. Take care.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Thank you so much.